So this vulnerability thing, like I totally used to not get it, and it used to be really scary to me. And most people find it scary. You know, there's so many people, if you talk to them about vulnerability, like especially men get really like scared about it. And they're like, what are you telling me to do? Like be some, you know, dribbling wreck that's just crying all over the place, which isn't what it's about as well, because vulnerability is about finding a balance, right? And it's about creating a balance between these two sides of ourselves, because of course sometimes there are times for everybody just to toughen up, be strong, man up. I can man up sometimes, you know, as well. So, you know, pull it all together and just, you know, deal with the situation. There's time for that, right? Sometimes there's just time to just cry like a little baby or be like a kid having a tantrum, you know. But obviously when there's other people involved, it's, you know, it's about balancing and getting the energies right, so it's not going to hopefully freak out that other person as well, you know. So vulnerability and negative emotions, I'm going to say as well, are things that we can actually use to form a really incredibly beautiful connection with another person if we know how to intelligently use them. And I promised something on my post today, and I'm going to deliver, right? I'm going to give you this advice that I gave to this guy that had had 7 years of bad luck with dating. He was taking the conventional dating advice and scaring off woman after woman by trying to not be a nice guy. And I mean, it all sounds so ridiculous, and he can laugh about it now, but you know, this is what guys are being told to do, and it's what guys do. And unfortunately, there's so much like toxic information being given both to women and men, and I think there's a lot of women as well that are very emotionally unavailable, as well as men who are emotionally unavailable. And it's so important that we, you know, if we want to have like a deep connection with someone and really amazing, really good sex, it's also important to have this vulnerability and connection, and to be able to, what we're talking about here basically is just about being able to be yourself with other people, not having to be guarded all the time. I mean, I speak to specifically, I hear men talking about this, how they have been in a relationship for 10 or 20 years and they still aren't really able to talk about their feelings. And I mean, I know, sure, some people say, okay, it's easier to talk about your feelings to someone you don't know. Okay, there's some element of that. But if you have a relationship with someone where you are just more and more connected, more and more being honest, because trust me, if you have secrets from them, they have secrets from you. I mean, what's the point of keeping all those secrets, you know? Because you can connect together and you can start sharing it. And when you actually start doing that, like, I can promise you, the sex gets so way much better. Now, something that I've been hearing a lot of recently from male clients, and that I really feel like I want to and need to address right now, is basically, okay, you know, men have a bit of a reputation. People say, oh, all men want is sex. Yeah, it's kind of rubbish, right? That is all men want is sex, you know. But men have a lot of stuff pushed on them that they're supposed to perform. They're supposed to be like XYZ, whatever, you know. They're seeing these images of guys on porn, thinking they have to be like that, thinking if they don't act up and you know, behave in a certain way for women, and they can be ridiculed by women, you know, ridiculed for their sexual performance and so on. What is this? This is actually sexual abuse of men. You know, nobody's talking about this really yet, but I think it's a really big issue. It's messing up a lot of guys, you know. And I was just talking about this to a client yesterday who said he'd been getting in sexual situations where body and soul weren't completely aligned with what was going on. It wasn't happening at the right speed and so on, you know, and he ends up feeling really bad afterwards. And I was saying to him, look, you know, if I told you I went home with a guy and I didn't really want to have sex, and then I had sex with him anyways, yeah, wouldn't you be like, Jade, sort it out? What are you doing? Like, you're letting that guy abuse you, you know? But why should it be any different from men, you know? And the advice I gave him that I think is really pertinent here and poignant as well, is to really, like, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, if you're getting in a sexual situation, you know, and the bullying of men around things like performance, penis size and so on, right? It's not a nice thing, you know, but, you know, don't let that, don't let that phase you. Don't feel like you need to go and do something. I find personally, a great way I keep my boundaries is that I actually be clear with myself. And I'm like, what do I want? What do I not? And, and I just consider myself as a goddess, and that I'm kind of above all the riffraff, and sorry to say that, but I suggest all of you here watching this, when you go to any sexual kind of encounter, you are divine. Your whole body is divine, right? And if you just go quickly into having sex with someone, and unfortunately, I think that sexual liberation has basically got us even more unliberated in our sexuality than we were before, because, it's not giving us the conscious use of the sexuality. There's so much sexual problems. There's so much negative feelings around sexuality, exactly because people aren't feeling able to go in an empowered position into having the sexual experiences that they want. Now, getting back to the topic of this, vulnerability. What's this all about? Now, I give this advice, yes, specifically, I think it's very pertinent for men, which is, if you're trying to get a sexual relationship with someone, the first thing you should do is just throw out the idea of having sex, right? Probably makes sense to most of you, that obviously if you're like, I want it, I need it, it's, like this is why the three date rule has messed up so many guys, because they're like, oh my God, if I don't get it by the third date, I'm going to get friend zoned and it's going to like destroy my life. And then they just go through these cycles again and again and again, because they're putting out this like needy sexual energy. So the first thing is throw it out the window, right? Throw out the window the idea of having sex. Forget about it. You don't need it, right? Instead, start working on creating intimacy. And I suggested, like yesterday to the client, I said, find 3 to 5 ladies. It can be guys as well, it doesn't have to be anyone. There's sexual attraction. Maybe you think there's never going to be sexual attraction. That's all completely fine. Find these 3 to 5 people, preferably, to start practicing real intimacy with. Real intimacy is not having sex. It's not, going in and getting, getting your dick wet or getting, whatever, right? Real intimacy is being able to connect with someone and be vulnerable together. Now, I think of vulnerability is kind of like a muscle. And I can say there was a point, I understand like what guys go through because I was like a guy. Yeah, I never showed anything. I was always so guarded. I was into Qigong and martial arts, and I wasn't, opening my heart. I wasn't, and I thought it was okay, right? Until I ended up on this Tantra course, right? And first of all, the Tantra teacher gave some great advice. Well, also one of the students was nudging at me, trying to get me crying all the time, right? Which really annoyed me. But then later on, I understood the values and the benefits, And what the Tantra teacher said is, he said, start practicing vulnerability. Like if you've not been used to doing it, just start trying to talk to people about things and pushing the boundaries of what you're used to talking about. Maybe you never talk to dad or mum about XYZ. Just try and like stick just little things in, don't go in, and it's probably going to be too much for anyone if you go in and just dump, too much. But just start testing and doing it in a fun way, and not worrying about what's going to happen, not worrying about, where the energy's going or whatever, but just having fun in the moment with sharing from yourself and encouraging the other person to open up. Because very often when the other person sees us opening up and sharing, they're going to do the same and open up and share and start sharing back, And then once you get that little vulnerability muscle going, and I mean, another thing he said, which I think is a good bit of advice, if you just go in, you've never been used to being vulnerable, and you just dump, unless you're talking to someone who's done a lot of training or just naturally is one of the rare people that's really, in tune with this stuff, you can traumatize yourself or re-traumatize yourself, So you've got to be careful, and you've got to just, step by step, understanding this is a muscle that grows. Not everybody has capacity to intimacy, but people's capacity to intimacy can grow, just like your own capacity to intimacy can grow as well. And the more that you start being vulnerable, what you're going to find is that all these things you've hidden, excuse me, spices, do you mind? Why do my dogs do this when they know you guys are talking? Spices. I wish I could show you how cute they are, actually. Let's have a little look. Guys, please. So, excuse the disruption. For sure they know you guys are watching and they're showing off, you know. So, yeah. I mean, what I found was that... was that... the more that I started talking about these things I've been scared to talk about before, the more I started feeling this increased level of confidence. And this was all around the time my body started really opening up in an orgasmic way, opening up to really powerful experiences with female ejaculation, for example. I don't think it's a coincidence, you know, that all of these were kind of linked in together and happening together, you know, that I was starting to basically open up my body, open up my heart. I mean, you think how much energy must get blocked when you're just holding all this stuff in, you know? And when you start to open it, and then you start to be able to connect with people, and you start to be able to talk deeper and deeper and deeper, connecting into people, you know, deeper and deeper, just getting the feeling of being able to be yourself and feeling really cool with the other person being themselves too. Because if we're not comfortable with our own self, being ourselves, how are we going to be comfortable with other people? You know, it's so important. And ultimately, you know, this is a process, this is a journey. It's about working on yourself. It's about increasing your awareness. It's about healing yourself, you know. And as you heal yourself, as you release energies out of your body that don't belong there, as you start to feel like yourself again, you just start getting, oh, okay, now I can just be me and I'm cool with me, you know. And it starts to just become the most incredible feeling, you know, that you ever can have, when you can just be like, wow, my whole life I've been trying to be someone else to keep other people happy, and this is literally just simply luxury. Just not having to act like anything, not having to put up walls, not having to be in the ego, just being able to come in the body, because the ego is about the head and it's about being in the head. And it's okay to be in the head, it's okay to be in the ego sometimes, but when you actually start coming into the body, that's when you really start to open up to this experience of, you know, actually just really being able to feel pleasure. Because if you are all in your head, how is your vagina going to be able to feel too much pleasure? How are you going to be able to control your ejaculation or erection and so on? You know, this is all about being in the body, being embodied, you know, and being open up to sensuality and up to what we are, and recognizing the lower self, you know, all those parts of ourselves we're taught to look down on. The lower part is super important. It's just as important as the upper part. And actually, there was nothing shameful ever. We were just falsely indoctrinated to believe that things were shameful, because everything was completely fine in the first place. And there are people that know that. Some people know that, right? But we were told it wasn't the case. So if you're watching this, first of all, I want to open up for any questions. I'd love to answer any questions anyone's got. But I also want to offer I want to give you all a little bit of homework. Okay, so this is your homework, right? I want you to, if you can make a note of this now, okay? So I want you to start practicing vulnerability, you know, just with little things. And you can practice it, okay, you can practice it with people you know. I know not everybody, some people may not have people to practice with. Now, I don't, in the group here, for unfortunate reasons of people abusing it, I don't let people DM each other. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a post, which I'm going to just call, this is the post. You can start sharing things that make you feel vulnerable, you know, and bring them into the open, and that people can start connecting there, you know. And I would allow, if people wish to connect on the vulnerability post, to find a vulnerability buddy, where you can, yeah, if you comment on there, that people can meet there, they can put their little vulnerability experiences in, and they can even find, if people want to offer there to be a vulnerability buddy and find other vulnerability buddies. This is something I would like to invite and allow and encourage people to do. So I want to know if anybody has any questions. See if I can see here. No. Oh, somebody wants their kids listening here. So somebody's got their kids listening. This is really cool that the kids are in here. If you're listening and you're going to do this vulnerability thing, you're interested in it, please do give me a 3 in the chat if you're interested in also finding a vulnerability buddy in the group. And I'm going to create a post for you to be able to actually start doing that, so we can start connecting with other people, obviously voluntarily. But I want to just invite, if there's anyone here has got a question, wants to share anything, just want to give a space for that. So yeah, I'm glad that someone is having their kids listen to this kind of stuff, because it's so important. And, you know, I just really want to reiterate here this point that I made earlier, that, like, you know, we're told that sexual liberation is like having a huge, they call it in America, body count. Oh my God, it sounds awful, right? You know, it's about, you know, sleeping with lots of people, going into sex as fast as you can. I mean, I've seen some people saying, you know, like supposedly sex coaches, no, why wait, just do it when you feel like it. You know, the thing is, when you're not intelligently using and understanding the whole dynamic and all the different energies that come up with sexual energy, and you're just rushing in, what happens is you just rush in because you're horny, bam, 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 it's probably finished really quick. That's the end. You're all exhausted and you feel drained and you feel kind of bad and you feel kind of negative, because you've not been sharing your soul. You've not been sharing this intimacy. You've not been having this vulnerability. So I just want to say, like, slowing down, breathing, and ultimately, you know, these are all practices. I'm just stopping this little lady from going crazy, right? You know, these are the practices that has really allowed that it has really allowed me to be to really develop myself and just find like comfort with myself, confidence in myself, happiness in myself, you know, and to have like go from like never having orgasms to having like as many as I basically want, you know. So I see a really great question someone's just typed here. So what happens when you try being vulnerable, but the people you try with are scared or not understanding or accepting, not only about sex but about life in general? I mean, the first thing that I'm going to just say about that, and in terms of me, is to always assign to work on yourself, you know, work on your own energy, work on getting comfortable with your own energy, you know, because perhaps, you know, when we haven't been doing inner work on ourselves, and it's so important as part of this practice that we're doing inner work, always doing inner work on ourselves, always becoming more and more aware. working on transmuting emotions, because it's true, yeah, and this is why vulnerability has a bad reputation. If we just take negative feelings and just start throwing them out and dumping them around and so on and so forth, yeah, like we can get a bad reaction, definitely, you know, and that's why it's so important to just be aware, work on our awareness, work on like our ability to be able to just, you know, just really, really be able to understand and process our emotions. And I would just say, yeah, that's a sign. Slow down with it all and just start working on yourself, working with your energy, working with releasing those things. Because when we have like really so much stuff blocked up in our bodies, and honestly, I remember this about myself. At some point, I had so much blocked energies in my body before I was doing the Tao work that I think, you know, even people that were my friends, it was quite difficult for them to deal with it. You know, it was only when I started learning how to work on it, how to transform it, how to heal myself, that, you know, I then started getting much more comfortable with other people, and then the vulnerability thing started taking off and really, really working. So yeah, the self-work is absolutely, absolutely essential part of this, I just want to say. So yeah, okay, I hope that that was helpful, and I want to just reach out to the person who's written this to maybe drop me a message, see if I can give you some help and advice around that. But yeah, I mean, doing the inner work, I think, is essential for everything, whether you're talking about a business, whether you're talking about your sex life, whether you're just talking about your happiness, even, you know, sports and physical activity benefits a lot from you doing inner work as well. So yeah, I would just say that, you know, this is about working on all levels. And if we want to have good relationships with other people, good sexual relationships and so on, you know, working on ourselves is like the first place to start. And very often it happens, I can say, like I've had a husband, for example, husbands or wives working with me, and they start doing the work on themselves, and the relationship was just about in pieces. And in a short amount of time, the relationship really, really sorts itself out just through one person doing inner work and working on their energy field and really like transforming stuff. So, yeah. So that's basically, that's basically it. So remember, I'm talking about the energetic anatomy of the K-spot on Sunday at 7 p.m, same time. And I'm very, very soon going to be announcing, like on Monday or even before, I'm going to be announcing another 3-day challenge. And this one's going to be all about sexual healing. So that's going to be really, really super fun. You can heal anything with sexual energy. It's absolutely amazing and incredible. So, all right. Thank you for that really, really good question. That was so important, actually, part of this talk. And see you guys on Sunday. Bye.